Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about book one of the Chronicles of Nick, Infinity by Sherilyn Kenyon, or Sherilyn McQueen nowadays. But as usual, we're going to talk non-spoilery thoughts and opinion up front, and then we're going to move over to spoilers where we can talk in more detail. So with that being said, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So for a while now, I've wanted to talk more about Sherilyn Kenyon's content, or Sherilyn McQueen, because her last name's changed. But all her work is published under Sherilyn Kenyon, so forgive me for going back and forth. But I wanted to talk more about her stuff. But I want to talk about this sub-series, The Chronicles of Nick, first, before I really get into her Dark Hunter stuff. Because while, as I said in my world building video, I think her world building and her stories and stuff are really, really good, but there is a formula that's wrapped around it, and it's always based in romance. And those books are dirty. Like, those books are damn near erotica, the way she goes about the sex scenes and stuff. So I kind of want to recommend some of the less raunchy stuff before we get into that. So, but the reason why I do still like those books is because, as I said in my world building exploration video, her world building is next level. Like, it is so well done and so incredibly expansive, and it encompasses all my favorite mythologies. And all of that same world exists in the Chronicles of Nick. But the premise of the Chronicles of Nick is she is exploring a character that exists in the Dark Hunter series. There's a character named Nicholas Gaucher. He is in the Dark Hunter series, in the main series, he's an adult. He's college age. He's like at least a junior or something like that in college. But because of all these kinds of shenanigans, it's kind of a spoiler, but I think it's a minor spoiler because it's a setup. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you know. The Nick from the present day Dark Hunter series goes back in time and tries to change some of his past in order to prevent some of the terrible stuff that happens to him during the regular Dark Hunter series. So that's what the entire premise of Chronicles of Nick is about. It's about him trying to fix his past by changing some stuff around and making them a little different. So in the Chronicles of Nick series, we follow Nick Gaucher, a young boy in New Orleans who is basically running with the wrong crowd. He is running around like mugging and stuff and like hanging out with these thieves and things. But on the day that he decides to go straight and turn over a new leaf and like stop being, a bad New Orleans kid and tries to just be a good person or whatever, he refuses to help his friends rob these tourists, and as a result, they turn on him. And when they turn on him, they basically beat him to within an inch of his life, and they shoot him. So he thinks he's dying, but he ends up being saved by an immortal Dark Hunter, who's technically a vampire hunter, but he's kind of a vampire. So it's Sherilyn Kenyon's versions of vampires, and they're vampires. For lack of a better term, they're just vampires. I'll just accept it. They're vampires. But so by him choosing not to rob the tourist and getting attacked by his friends and getting saved by Kyrian, that basically sets up his introduction to the world of the Dark Hunters and like all, Sherilyn Kenyon's world building, her entire universe she creates. That basically sets him getting introduced to this world much earlier than he was supposed to. So the future him think it's, a good idea to have him be aware of all this stuff much sooner than he was, because obviously he felt unprepared. So after he's saved by the immortal Dark Hunter Kyrian has him go and work for him as a squire and starts to tell him everything about the world. So a squire is just like a squire in ancient times, except they're working for these vampire creatures. Basically, they're a daytime guardian and a personal assistant kind of thing. So he is at the age of 14 working for this incredibly rich guy because he's been collecting money since ancient Greece times. So he's insanely rich, and basically so this entire experience becomes a huge benefit to Nick because the help and the money that he gets from this job, he also uses it to help his mother and help their entire situation because they're very impoverished. So even though Nick is a poor kid who has basically grown up on the wrong side of the tracks and was basically a delinquent, he is very, very smart. He got into this prestigious academy school based on test scores when very few students actually do, because they just, they're like trust fund kids. Parents kind of get them in there, or their legacies or something like that. But he actually was one of the few students to get in on his grades. But because he is, underprivileged and impoverished and stuff, he's kind of poor. He gets all kinds of crap. So he constantly deals with all these classic teenager things and stuff, but he has such an acerbic attitude, and he's like living sarcasm, which is one of my favorite things about it. Like, so he deals with it in really interesting ways, and he is basically what they call like a gutter snipe. He so basically the idea is that, yeah, he may be like gutter trash or something like that, but he is vicious. So like you attack him, he gonna snap back at you. So like that's a lot of fun. And I really like how Sherilyn does her characters. These characters, while you kind of know Nick, because in the order in which this book came out, the regular Dark Hunter series had already been going on. So if you were a regular reader of hers, then you've already been introduced to this character, and you kind of already understand his personality. But what she's able to do, she's able to age him down, crank his immaturity, and like make his sarcasm just out of control. So it just becomes so much more fun. And he's an even more likable character in his youth. I mean, granted, he's a likable character all the way up until stuff happens later. You know, the reason why he goes back in time, until all that stuff happens. He's a really fun character, a really interesting character, and I'm really happy that Sherilyn was able to keep that kind of setup with him. So along with him learning more about the Dark Hunters, he learns about the Werehunters, the werewolf species, where they can be part wolf, or they can turn into a wolf, or a wolf can turn into a human, or they can be a dragon, or they can be a jackal, or a leopard, or a tiger, all kinds of different animals. So he learns more about that stuff. He learns about actual demons and things. And one of the main things he learns is that he is himself half demon. His destiny is more or less to end the world, and that's kind of the thing that sets him off trying to prevent and like working with the Dark Hunters, and that's kind of how he's able to take this information and not lose his mind from it. So this first book in the series is very much just a clean, clear intro story. It's very short, sweet, to the point. You're just kind of getting introduced to these characters, this new version of Nick and his classmates and the younger Kyrian and stuff. And like, you're just kind of getting settled into this situation, because the way Sherilyn writes, she writes for a live-in experience, I guess I'll call it. Similar in the way I describe Stephen King stuff, and that it's like watching a long-form TV show or something, or you just kind of feel really connected to the town, and you just kind of, you live inside of it, like far more than most stories, at least in my opinion. But same thing with this one. The city of New Orleans, where pretty much most of her books takes place, the city itself is a huge character, and you can really feel it. And she uses real places and stuff like that to pretty much get you to paint an even better picture. And a lot of it's on Bourbon Street and stuff, and it's just really well detailed, and it's really fun to kind of live in it. Now, these books, Chronicles of Nick, are young adult, so they have all those young adult tropes, but I accepted them a little easier. I also first time read this when I was younger, so easier to accept, I guess. But because it's also young adult, it doesn't have all the raunchy sex that she puts in her other stuff. But also, it doesn't follow that two-person formula thing that she does in her other stuff. All those other books are like, you meet a character that's a species, and then they meet a human, they fall in love, but they're not supposed to be together. So that is the triggering event for, that's the triggering, yeah. So that's the inciting incident for all of those other books, but these don't have that. So I like that a lot. So I want to talk about the specific thing that kind of goes on in this, so I'm going to jump over to spoilers in case you do really want to read it. So if you have read any of Sherilyn King and stuff, let me know what you've read in the comments down below. And let's go ahead and jump over to spoilers so I can talk about the one thing that happens in this book that I really, really like and that made me really keep reading. So spoiler warning for Chronicles of Nick, Book 1, Infinity by Sherilyn Kenyon, aka Sherilyn McQueen. So yeah. So over here in spoilers, I want to talk about the main thing that's going on in the story, right? So this world is already set up in such a way where magic exists, vampires exist, were creatures exist, demons, and all kinds of other creatures exist, right? So I think it's very fun and kind of hilarious that this is a zombie story. Sherilyn made this book basically a quick, simple zombie story. And the way in which the zombies are created is so interesting and unique. It's so left of field too. So a video game is created that is somehow turning people into zombies. And it's just insane. So A new character that we end up meeting that Nick has already known is Bubba, and I think Mike is the other guy's name. But basically, they're this like dynamic duo who literally teaches, because they all live in New Orleans and stuff, and you know New Orleans has like this huge supernatural nature to it in and of itself. So like they teach zombie survival classes, vampire hunting classes, and like all kinds of stuff like that. So when all this weird zombie stuff starts going down, Nick goes to them and like they know what's up, like they know what to do. They ready to get going. They ready to they like so it's they hit the ground running with them, and like they kind of deal with this whole situation, and they find out this kid, one of his classmates, created the game, but he didn't understand what it was doing, and so like they stop it and like they kind of reverse it and save some people, but other people couldn't be saved because zombies. So so it's really interesting. I like it a lot, and I've completed the series, so the series itself kind of continues in a similar way, though. They're very straightforward stories in the same way that Sherilyn will use the guy-girl relationship setup to incite incidents that create the rest of her story. She uses these very like almost mundane everyday, well, it's hard to say everyday because it's all supernatural and crazy, but she used these very like straightforward things, like the idea of Nick getting his driver's license. Like she uses those very simple things as his catalyst for all these other events, like dealing with different demons and different creatures that are coming after him and stuff. So I really like that, and I really like the series, and I'm actually looking forward to the sequel series because she just announced recently that there's an entire sequel series that takes place in the same timeline that jumps ahead after the last book. So I'm really interested to see like what happens with that, and I'm really interested to know if she's ever going to make these two timelines properly converge again so we can see what changes in the past affected the future and stuff. So it's just really interesting. I like it a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this here. Let me know if you've read any other Sherilyn Kenyon stuff in the comments down below. Let me know what your favorite was and if you're reading Chronicles of Nick. So as usual, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace.